The Xal-Zur Dominion had never known defeat. Their civilization stretched across a dozen star systems, their fleets sweeping from galaxy to galaxy, leaving only cold, broken worlds in their wake. A blend of synthetic and organic life. Their warships, massive, biomechanical leviathans, tore through the cosmos with unmatched speed and precision. They were perfection incarnate, a living empire that absorbed every race, every planet, every civilization it encountered. And yet, it was never enough. There was always more to conquer. Their latest campaign was the most ambitious yet. The Dominion had set its sights on a region of space known only to a handful of explorers, the Sol system, home to an ancient and once powerful species known as humans. The Xal-Zur had encountered human civilizations long ago, but their stories ended in flames. There had been no signs of life in the system for centuries. Earth, the third planet, had been abandoned, its cities crumbled and forgotten. Or so they thought. The fleet was massive, more than 200 ships, a show of force that would have crushed any lesser empire. The Xal-Zur ships glided toward the blue planet like shadows, their sleek metallic bodies reflecting the dying light of distant stars. The mission was simple: secure Earth, investigate any remaining resources, and prepare it for assimilation. The commander of the fleet, High Lord Zarthos, gazed out from his flagship's command deck, his mechanical eye scanning the empty void. His organic brain pulsed with the cold, calculated logic of centuries of conquest. "No resistance," he murmured, almost as though he was reassuring himself. The human presence, so powerful in their distant past, had vanished without a trace. Yet something in the quiet of the system unsettled him. The silence was too perfect. The sensors detected no radiation anomalies, no sign of active technology. Earth was still, like a corpse lying in an open grave. But there was something else. A subtle hum, an undercurrent beneath the stillness, like the distant echo of something ancient waiting to awaken. As the fleet approached the planet, the Xal-Zur began their initial scans. Nothing out of the ordinary, at least nothing that seemed threatening. The oceans, once vibrant, were eerily calm. The clouds hung motionless in the sky. The cities, though in ruin, were still standing, as if waiting for something to stir them back to life. Yet the Dominion commanders couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The feeling was almost tangible, as though 1,000 eyes were on them from the darkness. Unseen but ever present, Zarthos issued orders to deploy their ground forces. Hundreds of drones and soldiers would begin their search, beginning with the wreckage of the once great human cities. "Find what remains," Zarthos ordered coldly. "If humanity is truly gone, we will harvest the resources and move on. If not, we will bring them to their knees as we always have." The first wave of drones descended, cutting through the atmosphere with terrifying precision. Their targets were simple: satellites, surface installations, underground bunkers, all signs of humanity's once proud civilization. They were quick, methodical, and without mercy. Yet, when they reached the Earth's surface, they were greeted by a silence that felt unnatural. And then, without warning, the silence broke. A drone, one of the smallest in the first wave, vanished without a trace, its transmission abruptly severed. Zarthos's command deck buzzed with urgency. His mind raced. Was this a technical failure? A malfunction in their systems? He refused to believe it. But then, more drones started to go dark. One by one, the squadron of machines disappeared into thin air, vanishing like whispers in the wind. Zarthos's metal fingers clenched around his armrest. His brain processed the situation with terrifying speed. This was no glitch. Something on Earth, something hidden, was watching them. He could feel it, deep in his core. The hunt had begun. The silence over Earth grew thick, suffocating. The Xal-Zur Dominion's fleets hovered in the sky above, their sleek ships casting long shadows over the planet below. High Lord Zarthos paced across the command deck of his flagship, his mechanical eye scanning the screens with growing concern. What had started as a straightforward mission to assimilate a dead world had become something far more troubling. He had been confident. He had been sure. Now, a creeping unease settled in his mind. "Report," Zarthos barked, turning to his officers. His voice was calm, yet the weight of his command pressed down on him like an invisible force. A tactical officer, a young Salazar who had never seen true resistance, spoke hesitantly. "Lord Zarthos, we are receiving no transmissions from the drones. Our secondary probes are being disabled as well. It seems the system is disturbed. Something is interfering with our signals. It's a low-frequency pulse, almost biological in nature. I've never encountered anything like it." Zarthos stared at the officer, his organic eye narrowing. "You're saying that this planet has somehow learned to fight back?" He turned toward the holographic map of Earth displayed before him, the blue and green orb now clouded in suspicion. "Impossible. There is nothing here. Nothing to threaten us. Proceed with the ground forces. Use full sensor scans and deploy the hunter drones. We will find the source." As his orders were carried out, the Dominion forces descended into Earth's atmosphere once more, this time with more caution. The first wave of drones had been disabled without a trace, but now they came equipped with countermeasures, stealth cloaks, high-frequency disruptors, and reinforced hulls capable of withstanding environmental interference. They began their search in earnest, scouring the ruins of ancient human cities. The remains of skyscrapers stretched toward the sky like broken fingers, their windows shattered, their steel bones twisted. The streets were empty, eerily devoid of life. No signs of human activity, no bodies, nothing to indicate that this planet had once hosted billions of beings. And yet, as the drones ventured deeper into the wreckage, something felt off. It wasn't just the absence of life. It was the way the environment seemed to breathe, to pulse, as if the planet itself was alive, watching. The air was thick, charged with an electric tension that buzzed in the back of the drone's processors. Buildings seemed to loom closer, their jagged edges casting long, sharp shadows that shifted in impossible ways. The further they went, the more the sense of unease grew. One drone, a large, heavily armored unit designed to breach fortified structures, approached the ruins of what was once a great metropolis. Its sensors pinged, detecting unusual readings from below the surface. It was as though the planet itself was hiding something vast and ancient. The drone deployed its excavation tools, cutting through layers of rubble, but as it did, its visual sensors flared with an impossible sight. Something moved beneath the ground, a ripple like the shifting of colossal stone sheets running in waves underneath the earth. Then, the ground beneath the drone trembled, sending a shockwave that rattled its systems. The drone's camera feed flickered, showing only dark shadows and flashes of movement before it went silent. "Another one lost," the officer said grimly, looking toward Zarthos. "It's not mechanical failure. It's as though something is hunting us." Zarthos clenched his fist, the pulse of something ancient echoing through his mind. He couldn't let fear take hold, but the feeling of being watched, of being hunted, was palpable. There was no place on Earth where they could hide from this unseen force. Whatever this was, it was unlike any enemy they had ever faced. "We'll need to escalate the search. Begin an orbital scan of the entire planet," Zarthos commanded, his voice ice-cold. "We'll uncover the truth. There is something here, and I intend to find it." As his orders were relayed, a subtle shift occurred. In the darkness below the surface, something stirred in response to the Dominion's movements. A force long dormant, but no longer sleeping. Something had been waiting for this moment. And now, the planet itself was coming alive. The tremors from below were only the beginning. High Lord Zarthos stood rigid before the command console, his eyes scanning the shifting data streams. The Dominion's ground forces were still reporting losses. The drones had been failing, one after another, and now it seemed like the planet itself was actively defending itself, perhaps even fighting back. But Zarthos knew something more chilling was at play. Nothing on this world was supposed to be alive. Earth was supposed to be a forgotten graveyard. And yet, a sharp ping from his tactical officer broke his thoughts. Lord Zarthos, we've detected an anomaly, high velocity, originating from outside the system. A ship is emerging from the Orc cloud. The officer hesitated. It's huge, massive. We've never encountered a vessel of this size before. It's unlike anything in our database. We cannot identify it. Zarthos's stomach twisted. It was too late to deny it now. Something on this planet, something ancient and terrifying, had awoken. He turned sharply, barking orders. Deploy the fleet to intercept. All units prepare for engagement. We will eliminate whatever this is. His voice, though cold and commanding, was laced with uncertainty. He had faced countless enemies, civilizations who fought back with desperation and rage. But none had ever felt like this. This wasn't just another enemy to be crushed. This was something older, something beyond understanding. Seconds later, the ship appeared on their long-range scanners. TNS Vindicator. At first, the image seemed impossible. An enormous angular ship that didn't even resemble anything the Dominion had ever encountered. Its design was alien, stark and raw, with sharp edges and jagged spires, as if it had been forged in the heart of a star itself. No visible engines, no electromagnetic emissions. It simply was. No sign of its crew, no outward markings. Yet every fiber of the Dominion fleet could feel its presence, as if it was watching them from within the very fabric of space. Before Zarthos could issue further orders, the ship did something no one expected. It fired. One shot. It was a blinding flash of blue-white energy that tore through the void. The shot moved faster than light, a singularity that bent space around it as it hit. In a fraction of a second, the Dominion flagship, Imperium's Wrath, was gone, reduced to subatomic particles. Not even debris remained. The shockwave rippled through the fleet, creating a chaotic swirl of confusion and disarray. Zarthos stood frozen, his voice lost in the thrumming hum of his ship's destruction. His fingers clenched tightly around his armrest as he tried to comprehend what he had just witnessed. "Report," he barked, his voice shaking. The officers at the control panel scrambled to relay information, but nothing was making sense. The Vindicator was still silent. No transmissions, no energy signatures, not even a hint of where it came from. It was as if the ship was a ghost, existing outside of the laws of physics. It's gone," the sensor officer whispered, wide-eyed. "The flagship, obliterated. The other ships, they're trying to respond, but they can't lock on." Another officer spoke up, stammering in disbelief. "It's not just a ship, my lord. It is the weapon. Whatever that is. It fired once, and our flagship no longer exists." Zarthos swallowed hard. His mind reeled with a single horrifying question. What kind of weapon could do this? The fleet was in disarray. Every officer, every soldier gripped by fear they couldn't explain. Their once unshakable confidence faltered in the face of something they had no understanding of. Then the Vindicator spoke, not through words, but through the comm system. A single transmission, distorted but clear enough to be understood. "Leave now." Zarthos's heart pounded in his chest. His instinct screamed at him to retreat, but his pride, his arrogance, kept him rooted in place. He had never backed down from an enemy. The Dominion had never been defeated. "We will not retreat," he growled, his voice filled with venom. "Prepare for full engagement. All ships, open fire." The fleet responded, though with much less conviction than before. Their weapons were ready, their ships prepared, but something about this battle felt wrong. Deeply, fundamentally wrong. There was something about this ship, this mysterious Vindicator, that made the Dominion feel small. The Vindicator remained silent, unmoving, waiting. And Zarthos realized, with a dawning chill, that this wasn't just an assault. This was a warning. The Vindicator was still there, looming like a shadow on the edges of space. The Dominion fleet, stunned by the destruction of the Imperium's wrath, was momentarily frozen in a collective daze. They had faced countless enemies, but nothing like this. For the first time in their empire's long history, the Salazar Dominion felt something akin to fear, not just the uncertainty of the unknown, but the unnerving sensation of being completely outclassed. High Lord Zarthos stood motionless, his gaze fixed on the view screen. The hulking shape of the Vindicator seemed to pulse with energy, silent, ominous, and utterly implacable. His mind raced, but the usual calm of his strategic thinking faltered. The ship was no ordinary weapon. It wasn't even the weapon that had struck them. It was the very presence of the Vindicator, something older and more ancient than anything the Dominion had encountered. It was like a force of nature. "Re-engage," Zarthos barked, snapping himself back into command. His voice was a mask of authority, though it cracked with an undercurrent of hesitation. "We will not be cowed. All remaining ships, fire at will. We will overwhelm them." The Dominion's remaining ships scattered, circling to launch a barrage of energy blasts, torpedoes, and gravitational cannons. Their weapons lit up the darkness of space, a glittering display of raw power. Zarthos knew they outnumbered the human ship, that their firepower was far greater, but the unsettling silence from the Vindicator made him doubt. Before he could issue more commands, the Vindicator responded. It didn't fire immediately, nor did it attempt to dodge. Instead, it remained still, as if calculating every movement of the Dominion fleet. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, without warning, the Vindicator's massive hull shimmered, and a vast wave of energy pulsed outward, a wave that seemed to bend the very fabric of space around it. The energy pulse rippled across the Dominion ships like a shockwave, and in its wake, entire sections of the fleet simply vanished. The Imperium's wrath had been destroyed in an instant, but this new attack wasn't about destruction. It was about precision. Ships began to break apart at the molecular level, their energy shields failing as the pulse twisted space itself, destabilizing everything in its wake. Zarthos's heart sank as another destroyer, the Emissary, collapsed into a ball of twisting metal, its energy core destabilizing from within. There was no warning, no time to react, just the abrupt collapse of everything in its path. "Withdraw," Zarthos screamed, his voice raw. "Fall back. Now." But it was already too late. A single ship, one human warship, had reduced their fleet from a mighty armada to a handful of survivors. The remaining Salazar ships scattered in every direction, their tactical cohesion evaporating in the face of the Vindicator's relentless onslaught. The Vindicator didn't pursue. It didn't need to. The Dominion fleet was already broken, scattered like prey before a predator. The human warship remained still, its position unchanged, as though it were a patient force of nature. Zarthos's hands trembled as he watched the few remaining ships attempt to regroup. He had expected an attack, a strategy of attrition, but what they faced was calculation and patience. He turned to his officers, his voice now cold with dread. "Send a message. All units, return to the flagship. We need to regroup and reconsider our approach." The officers nodded, each one knowing that this was no longer a battle. It was a warning. The human ship had taken no damage. It had fired once, and in that single shot, it had obliterated half their fleet. And yet it didn't chase them. It wasn't hungry for victory. It wasn't a conqueror. It was simply waiting, watching. Zarthos's mind raced. He had thought he understood conquest. He had thought the Dominion was the apex. But now, with their fleet shattered, with Earth's secrets still buried deep in the soil, he realized the terrifying truth. The Salazar Dominion was nothing more than an insect underfoot, and humanity had been waiting for this moment all along. The cold silence of space enveloped the Salazar fleet as they regrouped in the wake of their devastating loss. High Lord Zarthos sat alone in his command chamber, staring at the flickering screen before him. The Vindicator had not moved. It had not followed. Earth's secret weapon, humanity's weapon, remained a mystery, a silent, waiting force. There was a hidden history here, one Zarthos had only begun to uncover. But there was one thing he did know for certain. The battle was not over. Zarthos leaned back in his chair, his mind replaying the moment of destruction. The Vindicator was more than a ship. It was the tip of a much larger, far more terrifying weapon. An entire species that had not only survived but prepared. What had become of humanity? Where were they now? The planet was still too quiet, still too empty, and yet the unmistakable presence of power lingered. He ordered his ship's systems to run another scan of the Sol system. As the analysis began, something caught his eye. A recorded transmission buried deep in Earth's abandoned archives. It was an old signal, weak but still intact, one that had been missed by the Dominion's previous scans. Zarthos ordered it to be pulled up, and soon, the grainy image of a human officer appeared on the screen. His face was stern, aged, and the background was dark, possibly the interior of a ship or some kind of bunker. Log entry, Admiral Rice, Fleet Commander of Earth's last Armada. The voice crackled through the speakers. If you're hearing this, then you've stumbled upon what we've left behind. I hope you're not too late. Zarthos's interest piqued immediately, and he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. Rice continued, his voice steady despite the obvious strain. Earth did not fall to some galactic empire. We didn't die in the open. No, the truth is much darker. The great battles, the wars we fought, they drained us. All of us. Our fleets, our people, our will. We were tired. So we retreated. We built ships, yes, but not for war. We built them to disappear. We vanished into the fabric of reality itself. We learned how to bend space, how to hide in plain sight, how to leave nothing behind but the echo of our passing. The grainy video flickered, and Rice paused, his face darkening with the weight of his words. And in case we failed, in case we were ever found, we left behind something else. A weapon, a singularity of human design, forged in secret, buried deep within the Earth. If you are watching this, it means we underestimated you, or you underestimated us. Zarthos's breath caught in his throat as Rice's words resonated in the silence. A weapon, a singularity. His mind raced. Could the Vindicator be that weapon? Was it the last remnant of humanity's final defense? What had they done? What had they become? To hide so thoroughly from the galaxy. Rice's voice returned, tinged with finality. If you are here to conquer, you have already lost. If you are here to destroy, then know this. The weapon you seek will do its job. But we will not beg. We will not surrender. We have built our future in the shadows, and we are prepared to end yours if it means saving ours. The log cut off abruptly. The screen flickered to black. Zarthos sat motionless, the weight of the transmission sinking in. A weapon buried deep beneath Earth, hidden within the very planet itself. A singularity. And humanity had made it, built it, long before the Xal'Zur even knew of their existence. But why hadn't they used it until now? Why had they waited for the Dominion to find them? Zarthos stood up suddenly, his mind ablaze with questions. He needed to understand more. He needed to know what humanity had become during their centuries of hiding, what kind of creatures they were now. The Vindicator was not just a ship, it was an extension of a human will, a will that had been forged in secret, in the shadows of the galaxy. His eyes narrowed as he turned to his officers, now looking at him with unease. "Prepare the fleet," he commanded. "We will not be deterred by their games. We will find the weapon. We will destroy it, whatever it takes." But deep down, he knew something had shifted. The balance of power had already changed. The Dominion had underestimated humanity. And now, the full scope of their mistake was becoming horrifyingly clear. Zarthos stood in the heart of the Dominion flagship, his eyes fixed on the swirling maps and data streams that flooded the command deck. His mind was a maelstrom of thoughts, every decision now carrying the weight of impending catastrophe. The transmission from Admiral Rice had opened a door to a truth he was still struggling to understand. Humanity had built something hidden beneath Earth, a weapon powerful enough to turn the tide of any war. And now the Dominion was on the edge of unleashing it, possibly sealing their own fate. His fleet had regrouped, but they were fractured, nervous, questioning. Their first direct encounter with the Vindicator had shattered their confidence, leaving only remnants of their former might. The fear that had taken root in their hearts was undeniable. A singularity, a weapon so potent that it could level fleets with a single shot. It was no longer a hypothetical. It was real, and it was buried deep beneath Earth's surface. "We need to act swiftly," Zarthos muttered to himself, pacing back and forth. He couldn't afford hesitation. Not now. The weapon is beneath them, yes, but we have no idea how deep it goes. They've buried their secret well. His officers stood silently, waiting for their leader to give the order. But Zarthos was still lost in his thoughts, wrestling with the implications of what they had uncovered. What had humanity become during their centuries of hiding? How had they turned from a struggling species to this mysterious, seemingly invincible force? The tactical officer spoke up, breaking the silence. "Lord Zarthos, we've located a potential entry point, deep within the former capital region, what was once known as New York. There are strange energy readings. It's almost as if the city is alive. We believe it might be connected to the Singularity's location." Zarthos's eyes sharpened. The capital city had been abandoned for centuries, a ghost of humanity's once great civilization. New York, along with most other human cities, had been left in ruins. But if it was indeed connected to the weapon, it would be their only chance to stop what was coming. "Prepare the ground teams," Zarthos commanded, his voice resolute. "We will deploy our forces immediately. I want every unit on the surface, ready to search every inch of this city. We'll find this forge, whatever it is, and we'll destroy it." His orders were carried out swiftly. The remaining Dominion forces began their descent to Earth's surface, dropping in precision waves toward the ruins of New York. Their ships cut through the atmosphere with frightening speed, gliding toward the heart of the ancient city. The first teams hit the surface, their boots crunching on the broken pavement. The air was heavy, charged with an unseen energy, and the city was eerily silent. The ruins were vast. Decades of decay had eaten away at the once proud skyline. Yet beneath the surface, something stirred. Beneath the rubble, beneath the very soil itself, there was a hum, faint but unmistakable, a pulse that echoed through the city like a living heartbeat. The Dominion soldiers moved through the ruins, scanning every building, every street, as they made their way toward the old central district. But something was wrong. The city felt wrong. It wasn't just the decay, the abandonment, it was the feeling that they were being watched, that every step they took was being monitored by an unseen force. "Lord Zarthos," a lieutenant reported, her voice crackling through the comms. "We found something. It's buried beneath the remains of the old city hall. There's a massive structure down here, hidden by centuries of rubble. It's still intact. It feels like a forge, like the kind of structure used to create something powerful. But it's not just technology. It's alive." Zarthos's heart skipped a beat. This was it, the hidden forge, the weapon humanity had left behind, and it was waiting for them. "Proceed with caution," Zarthos ordered. "Bring it all down. We'll bury whatever they left behind." But even as he issued his orders, a sense of dread filled him. The soldiers continued their descent into the underground chambers, their eyes catching the faint glow of something ancient, something pulsating with power. Whatever humanity had left behind, it wasn't just a weapon. It was a testament to their resolve, their survival. And now, Zarthos understood. Humanity hadn't just created a singularity. They had become it. The ground teams, equipped with the best the Dominion had to offer, pressed deeper into the heart of the underground chamber beneath New York's ruins. The walls of the structure were alien, not built by human hands, yet unmistakably shaped with a purpose. Every inch of the chamber hummed with an unnatural energy, as if the very stones were alive, breathing in rhythm with the pulse that filled the air. The deeper they went, the more the air felt dense, charged, as if the past itself lingered in every breath. Lieutenant Hekra, one of the Dominion's elite tacticians, led the charge, her helmet's sensors flickering as they detected the faint glow of light deeper inside the chamber. The deeper they went, the more it seemed as if the forge, this place of unimaginable power, was stirring. "Lord Zarthos," Hekra's voice crackled over the comms. "We've reached the core. The structure. It's massive. And there's something moving inside. It's almost like the walls themselves are shifting, alive. We're going to need more time to breach the center." Zarthos's face hardened. Time was a luxury they no longer had. The fleet above had already been fractured. The Vindicator's presence in orbit was still a constant, ominous reminder that they were on borrowed time. If humanity had set this trap, they had already won. It was not just about technology, but about survival, about what humanity had become in their long exile. Zarthos could feel the weight of their hubris. "Continue the assault," Zarthos ordered, his voice taut with determination. "Find the heart of this weapon. It ends now." The ground teams moved forward with renewed urgency. As they reached the heart of the forge, the structure began to tremble, its walls grinding against each other, as if reacting to their presence. Something ancient and deep inside the chamber was waking, stirring. The closer they came, the more the pulse of energy seemed to grow louder, faster, until it felt like the entire planet was trembling beneath them. Suddenly, a sharp, guttural sound echoed through the chamber, and the walls shifted. It wasn't a mechanical sound, it was something else. It was as if the forge itself was alive. The massive doors to the core chamber opened slowly, and the team moved forward, weapons raised, prepared for whatever lay beyond. What they found inside made them stop in their tracks. In the center of the chamber, suspended in the air, was a massive structure, an enormous spherical core that seemed to pulse with an ethereal living light. Its surface shimmered, reflecting a strange, almost liquid-like quality, as though it existed in multiple dimensions at once. The walls around the core were etched with intricate designs, symbols that looked at once both ancient and alien, human in their origin, but transformed into something else, something far beyond what any mortal mind could comprehend. Hekra's voice was barely a whisper when she spoke into the comms. "Lord Zarthos, this is it. This is the weapon. But it's not just a weapon. It's alive. Whatever humanity created here, it's a force, not just a machine." Zarthos's chest tightened as he watched the screen, his mind racing. A weapon alive. A singularity capable of bending the very fabric of reality. It had been forged by humanity, yes, but it was something far more than anything they had expected. The weapon wasn't meant to destroy. It was meant to reshape, to transform. "We've made a grave mistake," Zarthos muttered to himself. "This isn't just a weapon, it's their legacy. Humanity didn't just create this. They became it." Just as Zarthos began to process the implications of this realization, the energy within the core flared, and the entire chamber shook violently. The walls cracked as tendrils of energy began to surge outward, spreading across the forge, weaving through the very air. It was as if the structure had recognized the presence of the Dominion soldiers and was responding, waking up in full. And then, with a sound that echoed through the depths of the forge, a voice resonated through the chamber. A deep, commanding tone that wasn't mechanical, wasn't electronic, but human. "Leave," the voice commanded, its tone carrying the weight of an empire's final decree. "You do not belong here." The soldiers froze, their weapons pointed in every direction, but there was no sign of an enemy, no physical figure to target. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere at once. "It is not your time," the voice continued, now laced with a cold fury that sent chills down their spines. This is not your world to conquer." Hekra stepped back, her face pale beneath her helmet. "Lord Zarthos, we're not dealing with a weapon. We're dealing with them. The humans. They're alive in this place. They've become something else." Zarthos's eyes widened in horror as the realization sank in. The weapon, the singularity, it wasn't just a force. It was the very essence of humanity's survivors, their consciousness, their will, their very being, now embedded within the core. Humanity had evolved beyond their physical form and had hidden themselves within this structure, waiting, watching, surviving. And now it was time for them to awaken. The chamber trembled violently as the voice echoed again, louder this time, as if the forge itself was resonating with a cosmic rage. "You have trespassed into the heart of what you do not understand," the voice boomed. "Your empire, your fleets, your weapons, they are nothing. We are the legacy of humanity, forged from the bones of the earth itself. You cannot defeat what you do not know." Zarthos stood frozen, his mind racing. The truth had hit him with an impact so fierce it left him breathless. The singularity this weapon humanity had buried beneath the surface of their dead world was no ordinary construct. It was alive, the living will of a species that had transcended death, that had reshaped itself into something beyond the reach of any conqueror. The voice that now filled the chamber was not just a defense mechanism. It was humanity, alive. And it was angry. The ground beneath them began to crack, and tendrils of energy shot out from the core, spiraling through the walls like living veins, coursing with raw, untapped power. The air grew thick, humming with an electric charge that crackled and sparked. Zarthos could feel his heart race as the oppressive presence of the forge seemed to expand, as though the very environment was now weaponized. Hekra, standing a few steps behind him, spoke through the comms, her voice shaking. "Lord Zarthos, this is no ordinary weapon. It's conscious. It's alive, and it's reacting to us. We need to get out of here now, before." Her words were cut off by a blinding flash of light, and for a split second, Zarthos thought he was blinded. But then the light subsided, and the chamber was filled with a new presence. It wasn't just the voice anymore. No, now there was something else, a sense of being watched, of being scrutinized by something beyond comprehension. And then, with a sudden surge of energy, a figure emerged from the core, a form that seemed to phase in and out of existence. It was human. At least it looked human, but its features were somehow distorted. The figure's eyes glowed with an ethereal light, their skin shimmering with a strange translucent quality that made it look almost unreal. The figure spoke, but this time it wasn't with the voice that had filled the chamber. It was direct, personal, and it was aimed at Zarthos alone. "Why do you persist?" the figure asked. "Why do you seek to destroy what you cannot control? Do you think yourself invincible, that your fleet and your empire will break what we have become? We are beyond your understanding, beyond your reach." Zarthos's heart pounded in his chest. He had expected a weapon. He had expected destruction. But this was something else entirely. This was not just a war for survival. It was a war for the very soul of humanity, and it was clear now that humanity had won. They had transcended. The figure's hand extended toward him, and suddenly, Zarthos felt the temperature drop. A chill filled the air, and he saw his own breath forming in the icy space between them. "You should have stayed away," the figure said softly, as if pitying him. "This is not your fight. This world, this weapon, it was never meant for you." Zarthos tried to lift his weapon, but his arm felt heavy, as if the very air around him had turned to lead. The forge's energy had taken control, and in this chamber of ancient power, his will was no longer his own. And then, with a sudden, horrifying clarity, Zarthos understood. This was not a weapon meant to kill. It was a weapon meant to transform. Humanity had harnessed the power of their world, of their history, of their very essence, and they had created something that could change the fabric of reality itself. The figure spoke once more, and its voice, though cold and otherworldly, was laced with a quiet, unshakable truth. You cannot defeat us, Zarthos. You cannot take what is ours. The galaxy you know is nothing more than a speck in the shadow of what we have built. We have conquered time. We have conquered space. And now we will conquer your fate. The chamber shook again, this time with a violent force. As the energy surged outward in all directions, the Dominion soldiers scrambled, but it was futile. The Forge had awakened, and with it, humanity's final victory. As the energy expanded, Zarthos realized that it wasn't just his fleet that was in danger. It was everything. The entire galaxy would feel the consequences of humanity's final act. For this weapon, this singularity, was far more than a mere tool of war. It was the culmination of their species' will to survive, to evolve, to control the very nature of existence. And now, the galaxy would be forced to reckon with it. With a final surge of energy, Zarthos felt the world around him implode, as the fabric of reality itself began to tear. The last thing he saw was the figure, its glowing eyes locked onto his, as if it were looking through him, seeing everything, knowing everything. Humanity had conquered more than just galaxies. They had conquered destiny itself.